Hello friends, I am Dr. Avinash Ade from Department of Botany, Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune. I am presenting here the topic of population ecology as it was allotted to me for this particular conference. So, population is defined as the individual's group which belongs to the same species. So, as we know, we are human being. We belong to the single species, that is Homo sapiens sapiens. And these species individuals, they are distributed all over the world in different oceans, in different land, not only ocean and land, but it is also reported in the space. So, on the overall side of Earth, if human being is present, then that is considered as a single species, and this is present in different patches. So these patches are nothing but the continents, because we are terrestrial animal, and these continents are the support for us. At the same time, we can interact with each other. So although we are residing in Asia, we can communicate with Africa, we can communicate with America, we can communicate with Europe and Australia, etc. Similarly, we can communicate with the human being which is living in the space. Suppose any astronaut is there in space station, we can have the talk with him and ask how our country looks. So with this specification of the population, let us understand what is it exactly and what are its characteristic features. So let us play the slides. So populations are having several characteristic features uh, as per the uh, group of studies, or you can say school of thoughts. They can make different criteria for analyzing population, and as per the experts also, these criteria are variable. But very much important of all these criteria are two. This is about the distribution and density. So distribution is nothing but the dispersion of the population, and density is called as population size. Means per square kilometer, how many individuals belong to the particular species they are there. So that determines the size. We are terrestrial animals, and we can spread only on the surface of the earth so far as the land is concerned. But at the same time, bacterial population, if we consider, the bacteria may be present on the surface, as well as these are also present in the air. So air and surface, if both of these bacteria, if we are considering, or both of these individual of from both these entities we are considering, then we have to we have to optimize a particular unit of this sampling, that is known as volume. So volume, all of us know that it have the length, width, and height. So this will be expressed in terms of 1 cubic meter, 1 cubic centimeter, etc. So volume is the appropriate unit for determining the population size, and that is considered as density, just like the density of any material. So why such population is present in a specific zone or specific area? The factors responsible for the distribution of population, they determine where the population should be distributed and where should not. So let us see the categories of this factor. We'll see the three categories: abiotic factors, which involve the sunlight and temperature; precipitation, that is also called as water or snowfall. Then soil and nutrients, that is also considered as a abiotic factors. So these abiotic factor, if we consider, the human population would like to live in the suitable temperature zone and where there is enough sunlight. Similarly, human being also like the region which is having adequate rain or water facility available. Then human being also select the land which is rich in nutrients for the sake of agricultural purpose, and hence this will be serving as a natural resource for human being. So such abiotic factors that is responsible for the distribution of population of human being, and it is the same story with all the species that may involve the animals as well as plant and even the microbes also. So wherever the natural resources are there, populations are going to aggregate over there, and that forms the particular distribution. Then apart from abiotic factors, biotic factors are there. So these biotic factors are nothing but the food related entities. For example, prey, if it is there, then predators will try to accumulate. Then competitors, they are there at the same time. Suppose one individual is going to attack on one particular prey, which is predator, and this predator is going to consume the prey at the same time. It will be faced by the other competitors, and that competitor will also try to consume the prey. So in these two individuals, there may be a severe competition. So prey and competitors, these are related with each other, and predators, they are consuming the prey, and parasites, they are also there. So these are causing diseases. For example, human parasites or animal parasites or plant parasites, all are responsible to cause the disease. So these are the biotic factors which are uh, already existed in that population, and population can be influenced with these particular biotic factors. So suppose there is a deficiency of prey, the predator will be automatically less. If there is no competition, then every individual will be flourish well. If there are no diseases, then there will be healthy nature. So such biotic factors that will be also influencing the population. Then third type of factors are there. These are known as adaptations. So adaptations are occupied in the organisms as per the evolutionary sequence. So during the course of evolution, whatever the negligible character or misused characters, they are going to vanish, and whatever the required characters are there, these are getting developed. So although it is a simple thing proposed by Lamarck, or that is known as Lamarckian concept, but later on in due course of time, it is the need of that particular character, and same character has been adapted by changing the respective genes. So this is dependent on the genome of that particular species. So once it is genome based characters, then for many individuals, even after so many reproduction cycle, the characters will be maintained as such, and that character is called as the permanent character of that particular species. So such permanent characters are residing, these are encrypted in the genetic system or the genomes. So gene governing characters are nothing but the intrinsic factors. So such factors are responsible for distributing the population all over the world. Now, so far as the distribution is concerned, or pattern of distribution, dispersion, if we see, then we find basically three patterns. One is clumped, then another is uniform, and third one is random. In clumped pattern, the picture of the fishes we can see. So these fishes, they are gathering together and they are acting as a large fish, or they are behaving like a large fish because of the coordination in between them. And if this group of fish come in contact with the larger fishes, then this each and every individual from this group will be saved, because the larger fish will pursue that the shape of that particular group of these fish will be not a group, and that is behaving like a larger, still larger fish than that of that predator fish. So for the sake of protection, such type of organization is seen in almost all the animals who have the threats of these enemies. So this is known as clump type of distribution. Then another type is here in case of penguin. In Antarctic region, the penguins are there, but you can see here the penguins are already, although they are gathered over there, but still in the gathering they can maintain, or they are maintaining the safe distance in between. So no penguin is attached with each other, and there is at least distance is maintained, and hence this will be called as uniform distribution of the individual. And third category is there, that is known as random distribution. So this random distribution is noted by the plant. Plants are fond of water and minerals, and they are also like the uh, sunlight. So for getting these natural resources, plants are aggregated where the ample of these resources are present. And that depends on the plant species. Some species will be a light loving, some species will be shade loving, and shade loving species never compete with the light loving species. But light loving species, if these are there, there will be a very peculiar competition, and all of them they try to grow tall. So in this way, wherever the space is available, wherever the nutrients are available, wherever the texture of the soil is available, the plants are going to select that, and hence that depends on the natural resources. So they don't have any distance maintenance in between them, but they will be just responding the nutrient characteristics of the soil or texture of the soil and the availability of sunlight. So that's why they are known as randomly distributed population. So far as the human population density, if we see on this map, then you will find that the population is aggregated towards equatorial region than that of the temperate and than that of the polar region. What is the reason behind that? In tropical region, the resources availability that will be more. Tropical region is having suitable temperature for the human life. Therefore, without any cloth also, human can be residing. Many of the African tribes, they don't wear clothes, and they are still comfortable in the jungles of this Africa. So why is this so? Without any cloth, without any requirement, without any facility, they are maintaining their life without any harm. So that is the least requirement of the resources, and wherever there is a least requirement of the resources, naturally people will try to attract that particular places, and people will be gathered over there. So that's why high density population we can report in case of India and China, southern China specifically, and Malayan archipelago. The adjacent country of India is Pakistan, and in Africa also. Forget about the desertified part of the Africa, but this is along the equator, the population is going to aggregate it. And as we move from equator towards the pole, the population is gradually decreasing, and at last in the north pole or the south pole, population is very sparse, and only the Eskimo population, that is countable population, that may be there, and in Antarctica there is nothing. So only except the scientists who are working over there for the expedition or for researches, they are only residing over there. Otherwise, there is no population, human population at all. So if we look at the graph or this particular map, we come to the conclusion that the natural resources that is responsible for the distribution of population. And we know that even in India, the majority of the cities, larger cities, if we see their location, then they are located near the water sources. So, say for example, Varanasi is located at Ganges, River Ganges. Kolkata is towards the ocean. Mumbai is towards ocean. Chennai, same. Delhi is on the bank of Yamuna River, and so on. So many rivers are there that forms the basins, and that particular rivers they are supporting the human life. And because of this particular fact, human are going to attract to these rivers water resources, and then they try to aggregate their population over there. So such distribution of population that is not only dependent on the ocean, not only dependent on the river alone, but any water resource that will be enough for the achievement of the human population. So same thing we can report in Sahara Desert. There are certain water reservoirs. These are known as oases, and in that oasis only the human population is existed. They are residing permanently over there, and rest of the area is like a barren land, and nobody try to uh, reside in that particular barren land. So that's why island type of structure we can find in the desert also. So such distribution of the population that is, of course, as per the availability of resources, and wherever there is more resources, there will be higher population density. For example, India is rich in all the resources, and it has biodiversity also. So this biodiversity, along with the other natural resources, that supports for the population of India, and that's why people from different places they are frequently visiting to India, and instead of going back, they are permanently settled here. So it was the story long back from the Alexander, or afterwards, so many visitors they visited India, and they established their respective governments in this India, and they settled in this particular country. And nowadays, the situation is that from all over the corners of the world, the people have migrated, and now they are the permanent citizens of India, and they are settled permanently. So this is the story of organization of India. So such type of population, this was liking the Indian suitability of the climate very much, and that's why they migrated towards India and they settled permanently in this particular country. So the population density itself explains that there should be availability of ample of resources, and hence people are going to migrate. Apart from that, what are the factors which determine the population size? So there are four factors. If there is a birth of the individual, there will be addition in the population. If there is a death of the individual, there will be deletion in the population. So birth when takes place, it is known as natality. Whenever there is a death, it will be a mortality. So natality will increase the population size, and mortality will decrease the population size. Apart from these two factors, there are again two more factors. These are known as immigration and immigration. So immigration means the individuals they are trying to occupy this particular land, and because of this occupancy the net number of this individual that is going to increase. So that is known as immigration. And immigration means for the other causes, if there is a movement of this individual of this particular population from this side to another side, so that will be called as immigration. So immigration will be the plus side, immigration will be the minus side. Immigration adds the individual while immigration removes the individual, and therefore the population size is influenced. Suppose the natality and mortality rate is balanced, the population size is under control. Suppose the immigration and immigration rate is balanced, then there will be constancy in the population size, and hence there will be no net increase or no net decrease in the population. But these factors, if these are imbalanced, suppose natality rate is more and mortality rate is less, then there will be the increase in the population size. Similarly, immigration rate is more and immigration rate is less, then there will be increase in the population. If it is in the reverse direction, suppose mortality rate is more, natality rate is less, then population will be decrease in size. Immigration rate is more and immigration rate, if it is less, then there will be decrease of the population. So that's why we are able to find out the rate of changing population. So how to calculate the rate of changing population? So here the rate of change of population is equal to birth rate and death rate difference. So this difference between the birth and death rate, if we try to specify, then this may be hold true in case of three situations. Suppose birth rate is represented by B and death rate is represented by D, then B is greater than D, then that will be presenting the situation where the population will increase in size. Suppose B is equal to D, then population is not changing the size. Suppose B is less than D, then population is getting smaller and smaller, and after some time this population will be finished. So that's why rate of population increase, R, it is represented by R, is equal to B minus D. So B is birth rate minus death rate, and that equation value may come positive, negative, or zero, and that find the destiny of the population, whether the population will be increasing in size or decreasing in size or remains constant. So by considering this, the rate of change of population size over the time interval is determined as dn is equal to r into nt, where r is the rate of change of population, while nt is the time which is required for this changing of the rate. So this particular equation gives us the population growth curve, and that curve is known as exponential growth. So exponential curve is J-shaped. Let us see the nature of this curve. So this exponential curve is obtained as J-shaped curve when we plot the population growth and time on Y and X axis. Then there will be increasing the line of this curve, and this curve is increasing in such a way that there is no maximum limit. It will be increasing and increasing. So maximum wherever it is reaching that particular point on y-axis, that will be reported as biotic potential. So such biotic potential is the maximum rate of reproduction of a particular individual. It is possible when there will be unlimited natural resources, but it doesn't happen. Why there is no unlimited resources? Because any example, if we consider, suppose bacterial culture is there, one bacterial cell, if you inoculate in 1 liter of say LB medium, then that bacterial cell will multiply. So within 30 minutes, it will be divided into 2, then 2 into 4, 4 into 8, likewise multiplication will be there. And that will be reaching to the greatest population in which all the medium of the bacterium that will be going to vanish. And when this medium is utilized by the bacteria, then naturally they will be reaching at the maximum point, but this is not the limit. So maximum point is known as biotic potential, but that is again a limited because the quantity of the medium is limited. So if they utilize all the 1 liter medium, then afterward there is no scope for further increasing the population. So although biotic potential is known as the exponential growth phase and it is a maximum rate of reproduction, but it has certain limitations. And suppose the limitations are there, then there will be somehow limits will be there, and that limitation will be bending the curve horizontally instead of growing vertically, and hence the J-shaped curve will be turning to the S shape. So in this case, although we are giving facility for any animal to reproduce, then it will reproduce, and reproduce and occupy all the space available on this earth. But after occupancy of the whole earth, where that animal will go? So this can't go into the space because there is no suitable conditions for the growth, and it can't even search out the new planets because on that particular planet there are no suitable condition for the life. So that's why they have to end its life here and here only. So that's why biotic potential concept is only the theoretical, and practically it is not holding true. So there are certain limitations. So what are the limitations for the exponential growth? So these limitations are enlisted over here. These limitations are caused because of the environmental resistance, and these environmental resistance are, as indicated, the decreasing oxygen supply. So as we are going to climb on the mountain up and up, then we'll come to know that there is deficiency of oxygen. So such decreasing oxygen supply, that may be the limiting factor, and that's why instead of mountain, the population will be more on the ground, and a very sparse population there in the mountain. In Himalaya, for example, there will be nobody in the Everest than that of the population which is present in the Kolkata city, at highly populated city. So such type of difference we can note. Then a low food supply. If there is no availability of the food, the population will not be growing over there. So that is also a environmental resistance. If there is no food, why to reside in that particular area, and people start migration from that area. Then diseases, where the diseases are there, population will not try to grow over there. Although there is growth of the population, some individuals may be affected with the diseases and they are going to die. So that's why this population will not be growing over there, and in this way it will be naturally controlled by the environmental resistance, because diseases are caused by the pathogenic microorganisms, and that pathogenic microorganisms are the part and parcel of the environment. Then predators. For a particular prey population, if predators are there, then prey will not survive for more time. And here, due to this environmental resistance, there will be somewhere limitations for this. Then limited space. If the example of Mumbai city, if we consider, the Mumbai is having limited space. So instead of growing population horizontally, we find there the buildings are made vertically, and so many multi-story buildings are grown over there. But even after that, the uh, rate of purchasing the land for construction of houses, that is too much, and hence it is a limiting factor. So that is introduced by the limited space, and this is the part of the environment. That's why it is known as environmental resistance. So if the individual try to grow in terms of many individuals or reproduction, then this reproduction is inhibited by this environmental resistance, and that's why there is a middle point in between. So reproduction is favored, no doubt, but at the same time, it is controlled by the environmental resistance. And that particular middle point, where there is an average of the maximum reproduction and environmental resistance, so that average is known as carrying capacity. So carrying capacity of a particular city is fixed. There are no migrants, human migrants should be there. For example, if bus is there, bus is of say 40 seater, and more than 50 people, if they are trying to enter into that bus, then there is no enough resources into that bus, and the carrying capacity, this is beyond the carrying capacity of the bus, and that may cause any of the uh, havoc. So say for example, if there is too much aggregation of the passenger in the bus and it is exceeding the limits of the seat, then there is a risk of accident. So such type of risk factor, if we try to minimize, then carrying capacity we have to consider. So carrying capacity is the limit of the individuals in which the situation favors that all the comfortable survival of that situation, survival of that particular individual. So all the individual, if they are happily living, then and then only it will be considered under the carrying capacity. Otherwise, if somebody are facing problem and some are happily living, so that is not the correct indication of carrying capacity. So this is the situation which is exceeding the carrying capacity. And if this is happen, then carrying capacity itself try to go down. So when the bus is filled with all the 50 members, 50 passengers, the limit is 40 seaters, then 50 passenger may cause damage to the seats of the bus, and hence the some of the seats may be uh, under repair or that will be totally destructed. And if seats are damaged, then carrying capacity of that bus will be automatically reduced. So if there is a overburden to the resources, the carrying capacity will be altered, it is decreased, and with that decreasing carrying capacity, population has to face. And when the population is trying to exceed, then again there will be decrease in the carrying capacity, and when it is reaching to the zero, then there will be extinction of the population. So that may happen, and that is known as the natural control over the population. So the equation, when we consider dn is equal to r into nt, that is related with the rate of change of the population. So this is modified in case of incorporation of this constant k, and this constant is nothing but the carrying capacity. So instead of having this dn is equal to r into nt, the equation has got modified, and this is written as dn is equal to r into, in bracket, k minus n divided by k, and the whole is multiplied with n, where the n less than k or k minus n divided by k, this ratio is having approximate exponential growth of the population. But this is practically impossible. If n is equal to k, then population doesn't change in size. If n is greater than k, then population decreases in size, and hence, although it is appeared like that of the increasing resources favors the population growth and the curve turns to the J shape, there will be limitation somewhere, and that J shape is later on converted into S shape, and that is said to be a logistic population growth, or S-shaped or sigmoid curve. So how this J-shaped curve is turning towards S-shape, we'll see over here. So J-shaped curve indicates the increase and increase and increase of the individual up to this particular carrying capacity limit, and this increase is not stopped further, and that will be further increased to form this overshoot. But as soon as the overshoots are formed, there will be negative mechanism working, and that is said to be a die-off. So such die-off mechanism is working, and that will be declining the population in such a variable so that it will be the average of the carrying capacity. So how much extent has been occupied by this graph due to the overproduction or over usage of the natural resources, the same drop will be reported at the average line of the carrying capacity, and in this way the equilibrium is maintained, and that equilibrium is nothing but the carrying capacity. So suppose in first phase carrying capacity as quite higher level, then in further progressive stage, the carrying capacity is going to decrease and it is declining. If it is continued with the same rate, then carrying capacity will be further decreasing, and this will be almost reaching to the x-axis. So when it is reaching the x-axis, this will be the uh, population which is totally degraded. Apart from this rate of change of population and carrying capacity, there is one more characteristic feature of the population, that is age structure. So mortality and natality, that depends on the age of the population. For example, human population, if we consider, so up to the 25 years of the age, the people are not married, and after 25 years they get married, and they start immediately the reproduction. So population size will be increasing when they are turning to the reproductive phase, and afterwards they are becoming old, and for up to 100 years the population decline will be there because of the mortality rate. So mortality and natality, if we consider, these are age specific structures. So suppose as per the modern lifestyle of human being, if we try to estimate the average lifespan of the human being, then we come to know that at 0 age, the birth of the young one takes place, and the older people, they die at the age of 100. So such two stages, if we try to see, then these are strictly dependent on the age. So that's why mortality and natality are the age specific processes. So such processes that determines the rate of change of the population or population size. So that's why this age structure is considered as one of the characteristic features of the population. So based on the shapes, there are three types: the pyramidal shape, bell shape, and cone shape. So pyramidal shape is reported in case of developing countries just like India, that is highly populated country too. And the bell shaped or wound shaped pyramid population curve or A structure, these are reported in the developed countries just like France and Germany. So what these shapes, bell shaped and wound shaped, determines, here already there will be control over the population, and no enough, you can say, children are born, and then these children are trying to achieve the age of reproduction, and they reproduce. That's why this bulgy nature of the age we can find. And after reproduction, there will be a starting of the death phase, where people, they are already less in number, but they can survive at the end up to 80 plus of the age, and then afterward they are going to die. So majority of the people, they are completing their 80s, and onwards they will be uh, going towards death. But this is not the case in developing countries. In India, just like India, here there are number of children more, very more, or we can say that there is the overproduction of the human population. So as we go towards the maximal side of the age, then there will be very few people who are crossing the 80 years of their age, and hence at this point there will be very narrow curve that is obtained. So this is known as pyramid shaped curve, this is bell shaped curve, and this is wound shaped curve. So these two are belonging to the highly developed country, while this will be considered as a representation of the developing country. Apart from this age structure, survivorship curves are also there. So survivorship curves, there are of three types. Type 1 curves, that is having characteristic feature, that is good early survival and die of aging later on. Then usually have low birth rates. So here the example of human is given. So human being, they are already having less birth rate per reproductive effort. There will be only one child uh, in case of human being. Occasionally there may be two, that is known as twins, or three also there are, but the frequency of this birth, that is very, very less. And third characteristic features of this type 1 type of survivorship curve is the uh, it provides lots of parental care. So this type of organism, they provide lot of parental cares, and hence whatever the young ones are there, they are well protected, and they are completing the maximum age of their life cycle, and at this end, because of the old age, they are getting died. But this is not the situation in case of birds. In case of birds, at every step of their life, they are having risk. For example, here there is a breeding season and egg laying activity is there. So such egg laying activity, if this is there, then there is a risk of stealing of the egg. So by predator organisms, the eggs are consumed, eggs are steal, and there will be decrease in the egg population. So whatever the remaining eggs are there, they are going to hatch, and after hatching, the young offsprings will be produced. So these young ones, although these are produced and 100% hatching of the remaining egg is there, but there is a risk of predators. So there may be certain bigger birds, they will be consuming these young ones, and hence there is a risky for the young ones, and hence that will be further decreasing the population. So out of the total eggs which are hatched, some of the young ones, they are consumed by the predators. So therefore, very restricted population of these young ones will be survived further and develop into the adult. So in this way, there is a continuous decrease in the number of individuals, and this is a regular decrease. So that's why it is known as type 2 curve, survivorship curve. So this is reported in case of birds, obviously, and in case of lizards and certain mammals are also involved in that. Then type 3 curve is there. So that type 3 curve, that is showing very greater loss of the individuals in very early stages, and that very few individuals who are survived, these survived individuals can continue its life up to the end. So survival of the individual improves with the age, and here the examples are given: invertebrate animals, fishes, and plants. So what they do, they produce lot of offsprings at the beginning, and because of this number of offspring that is more, therefore parental care is very very less, and hence uh, after reproducing, what happens with that particular offspring, they don't care. So this is reported in case of plant also. Plant produces number of pollen grains. Out of that total number, very few of them, they are getting succeeded for the fertilization. But rest of them, they are going to vanish. But this is the rule for this kind of species. Even in fishes, large spawn of fishes will be produced, and then the parent will forget to take care of their spawn and young ones. They are just left to the nature. So whether they are died or survived, they doesn't care. So such type of survivorship curve we can report in case of plants, in case of fishes. So they are the indicators of very primitive type of say organisms. So these are type 3 organisms. So type 1 organisms are said to be highly evolved because as per the requirement they are going to reproduce, and after reproduction they are taking the care of their young ones with a great intensity. Type 2 curve is having a decrease in the population at regular stages of their life, but type 3 curve is showing mortality at the very early stage, and later on this will be very very few individuals will be survived, but if they are survived, then they will be completing their life uh, with full-fledged manner. So the survivorship curves that gives us an idea how the different individuals that shows different survival style. Again, the life history pattern that determines the quantity of population, or that influence the population size. So here the lifestyle or life stages and the time required for completing that stages, there is a logic, and for particular species, this logic is constant. So suppose a human being is converting into the adult after 25 years of his age, then for all individuals of human being, this is true. So just like that, if we apply the same rule to the plants, so after say 120 days are required for flowering stage of groundnut crop, then for all individuals of the groundnut plant, Arachis hypogeae species, so that will be taking 120 days for flowering. So there is a synchronization for all the individual, and for at this particular age, the individuals are showing that particular stage only, and afterwards they will be entering into the next stage, and that's why a life cycle pattern we can draw. So in our routine life cycle pattern, we present that the gametophytic stage and sporophytic stage. So gametophytic stage begins with the formation of gamete or developing of the spores from the spore mother cells due to the reduction division. And when gametes are formed and these gametes are going to fuse with each other, that is known as zygote formation. That is the process of fertilization. So till fertilization, the gametophytic phase will be retained. When there is a formation of zygote, then sporophytic phase is developed, and this sporophytic phase that is having 2n number of chromosomes, while gametophytic phase will be having reduced chromosome, reduced into half, that is n number of chromosomes. So this alteration of generation is there, and the time for this generation, that is also fixed. So this is determining a particular growth pattern, particular life history for particular individual, and hence that life history becomes a part and parcel of the lifestyle of that particular organism. So that is a permanent character, just like a biodata. So examples are given here. For example, yucca plant or agave plant. These plants reproduce at very much high rate, but all of these seeds are not going to germinate. Very few seeds are germinated. They are going to form the population, but at the beginning stage, there is a lot of flowering and lot of fertilization. Seed formation is also more. Pollen formation is also more. So this is said to be a big bang reproduction. So such big bang reproduction is shown by the Agave americana or Yucca species, and hence that is having the characteristic feature of that particular species, and hence it becomes the life history of that. Then annual plants are there, for example, Pisum sativum. So that takes 12 months for the stages from seed to seed. So from seed, there is a germination. From germination, vegetative growth. After vegetative growth, there will be reproductive growth. After reproductive growth, there will be fertilization and formation of embryo and cotyledons. They are converting into seeds. So from seed to seed travel, it takes 12 months time. So it is taking whole year for that. That's why the name is annual. In case of biennial, the vegetative growth is completed in one particular phase, and reproductive growth is continued after vegetative growth. And in vegetative growth, the photosynthete, which is formed because of the process of photosynthesis in the form of roots, these are stored enough, and such stored food products later on utilized for the reproductive purpose. So this is the reproductive phase of the biennials. So that's why these plants have two phases, hence these are known as biennials. The example is Petroselinum crispum, that is parsley. And perennials, they are having the vegetative stage always. There may be a leaf shading stage in between as per the availability of water or shortage, and they are frequently following the flowering and fruiting. After fruiting, they are again shading their fruits. The germination takes place, again they can fruit, again they can flower, and same plant can flower and fruit for several times. Then that is said to be a perennial. So whether the life history is annual or perennial or biennial, that become the part and parcel of that particular plant. And due to this life history pattern, there will be influence on the population size. So if annuals are forming the population, then at very particular site, is particular season is there, all the individuals will be survived. And after some times, if they are turning towards the death stage, then no individual will be survived over there. So all the population is going to vanish whenever there will be end of the life history of that annual plants. But this is not in case of perennial. Perennial will have the maintenance of all the individuals within a population, but these individuals will be following the vegetative stage, followed by the reproductive stage, again vegetative, again reproductive, and in this way, that alteration will be considered. In case of animals also, we find such type of patterns. For example, heteroparous animals. So example is given as a pig. Pig is repeatedly reproducing and so many young ones per reproductive efforts we can see. So pig is highly reproductive animal and its fertility that is more. But in seminiparous animals, just like salmon fish gives the birth of young one and then mother fish is going to die. So here the for pig a particular lifestyle is adapted, and for salmon fish the another lifestyle is adapted. So that's why salmon fish will never cross a particular limit, because mother is giving the birth to the child and mother is getting died, and hence the net individual belong to this particular species will be constant. So this is not possible in case of pig. So pig will be increasing population always, and salmon will be the constant population always. So this is the influence of life history patterns on the population size. Then causes for variation in life history pattern. Why there is variability in the life history? So the allocation of resources is one of the cause. In plants, growth, reproduction, survival, and storage, that particular stages that will be creating competing demands for a limited supply of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are synthesized, these are stored within the plants, and these are utilized for all these processes. For example, growth, reproduction, then survival and storage. So for all these purpose, the same carbohydrate fuel will be utilized. So how much carbohydrate content is there? So that content decides how much time will be given for the survival of that particular individual. So that's why resources determines the size of the population. Then next will be the size of offspring or number of offspring. So when the seeds are small in size, there will be produce in large number, and when the seeds are less in number, the size of the seeds will be large. So such type of counterbalancing activity that determines the size of the offspring or the number of offspring. So number, if these are less, size will be more, and the number is more, the size will be very much less. So these are counterbalancing factors with this life history pattern. And because of this difference in the life history, there are certain species which are following the carrying capacity related uh, population growth, and there are certain species which don't care about the carrying capacity. They just try to reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. So because of their reproduction, there will be logarithmic increase in the population, and that is known as boom. So that boom is trying to create the overshoot, and after that there will be severe decline in the population, that is known as burst. So alternate boom and bust will be located, will be shown by the curve of the R species. And here the carrying capacity, when the species is considered as per the carrying capacity, then carrying capacity decides whether that species is to maintained or to be eradicated from that particular area. So suppose if this population growth curve is within the carrying capacity, then there will be no problem for any individual of the species. All the individuals will be happily living over there. So based on this particular pattern, two pattern, the species are defined or classified as K species and R species. So K species gives us an idea about the implication of carrying capacity, and the rate of reproduction of this individual or the population will be within the carrying capacity, while R species, they are having alternate boom and bust phases in their growth curve, and therefore that is said to be a rate specific species. So K specific species means carrying capacity specific species. R specific species means rate of reproduction, rate of change of the population size, that gives the particular influencing factor for the population size. So these are known as R dependent species. So K species and R species, they are showing differentiation like this. In growth, same growth curve, if we try to locate the R species and K species, then you will find that R species may be located here at the logarithmic phase, while K species, that will be tending towards the stationary phase. Why is this so? Logarithmic phase, that indicates there will be severe reproduction rate, while in stationary phase the reproduction rate is minimized, and within carrying capacity only reproduction will be carried out. But here there is no scope of any limitation, the reproduction takes place, and because of this there may be a disturbance in the reproduction, and because of this disturbance the continuity of this curve is broken, and this will be coming down. So when they come down, again they start for the reproduction, and again they are achieving the stage of higher reproduction rate. So here the breakage of this curve indicates that the environment is very unstable, and that is not suitable for the growth of the population. So in unstable environment, if the species are living, that is known as R selected species, while in stabilized environment, if the species is living, that will be called as K selected species. So whenever we consider about the carrying capacity and then we try to reproduce, then that will be the consideration of K selection, while only the rate of reproduction is increased without considering the availability of the resources and all that. So that will be called as R and R selected species. So that's why difference or comparative analysis, if we carry out in between R and K, then you will find that in R, unstable environment, density independent, and K will be having stable environment and density dependent interaction. Then in R, small size of organism, in K, large size of organism. Then in R, energy used to make each individual is low, and here lot of energy is utilized for the making of individual. Then many offsprings are produced in case of R, then few offsprings are produced in K. Very early maturity is reported in case of R, and late maturity or often a prolonged period of parental care is offered in case of K. Short life expectancy is there in R because they are already living in unstable environment, and here long life expectancy because they know what will happen with our future later on. Then in case of R, each individual reproduces only once, while here K can have the reproduction more than once in their total lifetime. R is following type 3 survivorship pattern, while K is following type 1 or type 2 survivorship pattern. So this pattern shows that the loss of many individuals in early age of their life cycle, but here there will be loss of the individuals whenever they are reaching to the specific age. So this is the basic difference between R and K selected species. But that is not the only two categories. So for preparing the categories, the theory was proposed by Philip Grimme in 1979, and this is accepted as Universal Adaptive Strategy Theory, or UAST. So as per this theory, the description is given. There are three type of categories of the species. These are known as competitors, ruderals, and stress tolerators. So this idea was proposed by this Philip Grimme, and the characteristic features of this, these are as per given in this particular description. So competitors are represented by C. If it is applied to the plants have high competition ability when there is a low stress and disturbance. So if the stressful condition is totally absent, the plants are happily living over there, then there starts competition in between the individuals. So high competition ability is evaluated by fast growth rate and high productivity. So stronger individual of the same species will be showing fast growth rate and high productivity. High productivity means the rate of food production that is becoming high. Then stress tolerators. Plants adapt to high stress and low disturbances. They are called as stress tolerators. So they are following the slow growth rates. They are not like that of the competitors. So they are following slow growth rates. They are maintaining the long-lived leaves, and they are also retaining high nutrient potential. So nutrition is retained, water is retained, leaves are not shaded. Such type of individual plants are known as stress tolerators. For example, the species of Opuntia, the Opuntia retains water and nutrients into the stem, leaves are highly reduced, and phylloclade is developed, and this is therefore becoming succulent. So succulent plants is having a entirely different pathway for the carbon dioxide fixation, that is CAM pathway is there. So because of these adaptations, although there is drought condition, nothing will happen to the plants. Plant will perform its photosynthesis, its food production with at its normal rate, and that is not altered by any severe, you can say, drought or any severe scorching sun or extreme heat. So such stress tolerators are shown by the alpine plants or plants belongs to the arid zone, for example, Thar deserts of India or Sahara desert in Africa, or serpentine habitat where there is nothing in the soil except the texture. Then third category is there, that is known as ruderals. So third category species that favors the disturbed land. So disturbed land with low stress. Disturbed land, if it is there, then stress is minimum, and within that particular opportunity, the ruderal plants have to grow very fast, and they complete their life cycle, and within short period of time they will be showing high colonization, and entire patch will be turning to the green. So annual plants belong to the group of ruderals. They will be growing and completing their life cycle till the water shortage will come. So such relationship was proposed by Philip Grimme, and that is the representation of competitors, stress tolerators, and ruderals. That is abbreviated as C, S, and R. So that is therefore known as CSR relation. And this CSR relation we can show in the CSR triangle. So let us understand these competitors are there. So these are the plants which are competing for the sunlight. The stress tolerator plants are there. This is the desertified plants where the succulent nature of the plant is maintained. And here the mangrove plants are there where the crop roots are grown for the support of the plants, and again nematophores are grown on the mangrove plants for the respiration in case of waterlogging condition. Then ruderal species are grown here along the roadside, because the roadside is a disturbed site, and from the disturbed site, the occupancy of the annual plants are there, and hence this is turning to green patch. So for these ruderals, the independence of mycorrhizae that is there, means seed production is very much high, seedling development is also high. The mycorrhizae, whether they are associated with the root or not, they don't care. And such type of plants, they follow the polyploidy too. So because of the polyploidy condition, apart from the reproduction, which is routinely carried out by the sexual reproduction stage, the asexual reproduction is followed, and polyploidy is getting developed. So due to the phenomenon of polyploidy also, they are surviving. So such relations one can show in the form of a triangle that is known as CSR triangle. So on one side there are competitors, on another side there are ruderals, and on third side there are stress tolerators. So when the stress tolerators, they are adapting a particular feature or the stress tolerance, then they are comfortable enough even in the adverse condition of the environment, then they will start competition among themselves, and they become competitors. Now, when the competitors face any disturbance, abrupt disturbance is there, say for example, a storm of sand, if it is there in desertified condition, then in that case, the competitors may be damaged. So when they are damaged, then they try to occupy the disturbed land, and these species that will be turning to the ruderals. So ruderals are the plants which are growing on the disturbed land, and such ruderals, if they are comfortable enough for the growth of on disturbed land, then this will be converting into stress tolerators. So that will be adapted to that particular condition. So that is known as stress tolerating condition. So such type of CSR triangle that gives us an idea how competitors become ruderals, how ruderals become stress tolerators, how stress tolerators become competitor. So they have to behave as per the requirement, as per the situation. They have to adapt the strategy. So these are the three extreme strategies, but in between there may be a average, that is competitors and stress tolerators, competitors and ruderals, and competitors, stress toleration, and ruderals. And in the middle of this triangle will be the CSR, where there is the amalgamation from all the individuals or all the lifestyle, and hence where the species is adapting, whether competitor or stress tolerator or ruderal style. So that can be placed into that respective stages, and that is said to be an evolutionary strategy. So such strategy will be developed, and that is going to follow the permanent character of that. So that is also a particular feature in order to describe the species. Then coming to the metapopulation. So metapopulation is the population of so many populations. In case of human being, the population is there, human population is there, but it is distributed in different continents. Even in islands, the populations is distributed. So although we are residing in different continents, we are permanently in connection with each other, and such communicating uh, populations, that is uh, considered together altogether as a global population, and that is said to be a meta population. So such meta population will have occasional the gap in between, say for example river or road or forest or village. So these are the interspersing you can say bodies. So on either side of this body, if populations are there, then this population, although they are on either side, they are having connection with each other. So that is known as interaction. So this is said to be a population interaction, and these habitats are said to be fragmented habitat. Then types of metapopulation, if we see, then you will find that the highly connected population, then highly isolated population, and patch isolation. In the patches, you will find isolation. While here on horizontal side, small population, then large population, and small and large patch size, that is intermediate size, that will be seen. So metapopulation, that will be showing such type of classification. So this blue shading, it represents the occupied habitat patches. The vacant circles, they are the vacant habitat patches. This circle indicates the boundaries of population. Arrow indicates the dispersal, and this blue line indicates the boundary of metapopulation. So here so many populations are there that is bound with the blue line, and this blue line is nothing but the boundary of the entire metapopulation. So likewise, populations are classified. So then again, a source and sink relationship is observed in the metapopulation. So whenever a particular resource is available on one particular patch of the population, so that is delivered to the deficient population, because these populations are facing problem about that particular sources. So sources are delivered to this population, and the shortage will be overcome. So if there is any disease in the this particular patch, sink patch, then there will be a medicine from this source patch, and this medicine will be supplied and provided to the sink population, and the health of the sink population will be saved. In human population, we do that. In bacteria also, the transfer of antibiotic resistance through parasexual mode of life cycle, that is also brought about. So bacteria can save individual of the same species, but different strains are there, and these two different populations, if they are there, one population is having stronger measures with them to protect against antibiotic, and another population, they don't have the antibiotic resistance character, then antibiotic resistance is transferred from resistant to the susceptible, and that susceptible will become antibiotic resistant. So such type of source and sink relationship is observed in metapopulation. Then in case of isolated habitat, there will be the question of population, because that is, if this is totally isolated, then that is not connected with the mainland. So island is having a restricted, you can say, space or restricted resources, and hence it is interesting to study the behavior of population or rate of change of the population of the island. So this is treated as a separate entity in ecology, that is known as island biogeography. So this is the isolated habitat. These habitats may be of two types. This will be near to the continent or away from the continent. Whenever it is near to the continent, it is known as continental island. Whenever it is away from the continent, it is known as oceanic island. And if this is closer to the mainland, the communication will be, of course, more. And here it is far away from the mainland, the communication is highly less. Therefore, if this particular population is facing any problem, the help will not be rendered by the mainland people or mainland population, because of this so much distance, and there may be the extinction of this population. But if the distance is very closer enough, and if there is any problem on the population of this island, then immediate help will be reached over there, and this population will be saved from the problem. So this is benefit of continental island and oceanic island. Oceanic islands are not so much beneficial as compared to continental island. So the theory tells us that if the continental island is there, then its size should be large enough, And if oceanic island is there, then it's okay even with the small size. So small size of the island will be counterbalanced by the distance. Suppose small size, if any species is trending or on the verge of extinction, then that will be saved if these are allowed to grow on the small size islands but very closer to the mainland. And if the species would like to establish on the continental island, and if they try to retain over there, then space should be more in that. So island should be more in size. So size of the population, size of the island determines the size of population, and the distance between, you can say, mainland, that is also contributing a lot. So here, because of this counterbalancing act, the equilibrium theory has been developed. Now extinction. If there is no single individual of a particular species, the extinction is said to be done. So this extinction has been carried out long, long ago. Even in the extinction, if certain organisms they appear to be extincted, but immediately they are visible, then they are said to be Lazarus taxa. So such Lazarus taxa are nothing but the reappearance of that particularly extincted species. So they are disappeared from the fossil record, but afterwards they will be reappeared even without any linkage. So such taxa are known as Lazarus taxa. So extinction, when we say then we have to consider the causes of extinction. So causes of extinction are enlisted over there. Very much high extinction that is carried out in the past because of the asteroid attack. Afterwards, there is a loss of species by through food supply shortage, then followed by diseases, then due to climate change, then the egg stealing, imbalance, volcanoes, pollution, explosion, and other factors they are there. So they are all responsible for the extinction of a particular species, and because of that, the extinction was happened long back. So, for example, this is a meteorite attack. So here, the one meteorite gets striked on the Earth's surface, and the so many material was lifted out, and this was shaded in the space. But later on, due to the gravitational uh, force of the Earth, these are again attracted towards Earth. But while entering into the environment, they got uh, heated, and such heated balls they are again dashed on the Earth's surface, and due to this collision, the species they are totally vanish. So this is the extinction. So to understand the extinction, we have to look after the geological time scale, which is divided into eon, era, period, and epoch. And this is possible to construct this due to the formation of such type of rocks and reporting of the fossilized genera. And carbon dating technique is also helpful for that in order to find out the age. So, if we estimate what type of extinctions were there, so these are enlisted extinction which are carried out in the past. So, Ordovician, in which 85% loss of the species was there. Devonian, the death rate was 70%. Permian, 95% species were died. Triassic extinction, 76% loss. Then KT extinction, that was having 80% loss of the species. So after that, the population viability analysis. So population viability analysis is again a specific method of risk assessment of the population, and therefore it is used in conservation biology. So population viability analysis is used for the conservation, and this is the combination of ecology and statistics. So probability we are deciding, and on the basis of this probability, the forecast we can predict. So whether that population will survive in the future or not, and hence the future of the population one can predict. So such population viability analysis is restricted to the target population or the species, and for the conservation strategy of that particular species, the population viability analysis will be helpful. So criteria for population viability analysis involve the vital rate, that is natality and mortality rate, initial population size, then carrying capacity and density dependence in vital rates, life stages, genetic variation, immigration and immigration rate, then metapopulation dispersal, landscape change, unpredictable events, standard outputs, and sensitivity analysis. So factors affecting population viability, if we try to see, then this is the migration rate, genetic drift, inbreeding, then loss of genetic diversity, loss of adaptive variation, then genotype by environmental interaction will be showing local adaptation. Local adaptation will be favoring outbreeding depression, and this inbreeding and outbreeding depression that will be decreasing the size of the population, or that will be uh, viability, decrease in the viability of the population. So that is well explained by this chart, and hence we can say that this viability analysis will help what will happen with the population after some time, what will happen with the population size after some time. So that determines the future of that population, or expectancy of the population, or prediction of the population, and hence this will be important in this case. So with this we have to stop, and we are coming to the conclusion that the population study is very much important, and in order to see the interaction with the available resources, uh, if we manage the size of the population, then and then only it will be compatible, otherwise population will be on the verge of extinction. So with this, I thank you, the organizer of this conference, for giving me an opportunity to interact with you people. Thank you very much.